reports indicating that rapist Brock Turner, who was sentenced to a measly 6 months in jail by a judge, had sent a photo of the victim to his friends, to his swimmer pals. The story is so disgusting. So apparently he sent a photo of her breast, or allegedly sent a photo of her breast, to his friends via GroupMe, which is a messaging app. After Turner was arrested, he received a text via GroupMe that said, "Whose tit is that?" Turner appeared to have sent the photo with the message, "Bones." Police were unable to access the photo because somebody on the app deleted it. Any member of the group can delete a message on GroupMe. So just to fill you in on some more details about this story, apparently what had happened is authorities had seen that on his phone. Anyone who has a phone knows, like, your smartphone will give you that notification, right? Whose tit is that? So that's what the cops saw. They can't just search his phone, so they obtained some sort of warrant in order to do it. In between that time, he was able to, or someone in the group was able to delete the photo. So we're not 100% sure if it was the victim's photo, but the timing seems interesting given that he had just been arrested for raping someone behind a dumpster as she was unconscious.
Man, this is just, it's tough stories to cover, all packaged into the one day, right? But I need to try and think as rationally as I can to try and understand. Right, so the argument that was put forward for this horrible human being, which is continuously regurgitated by his parents, inexperienced with drinking, that's bullshit, because we already have seen through those obtained text messages, continuously talking back and forth with his friends, talking about drug abuse, talking about drinking quite a lot. So it kind of goes against the argument that he's a good standing student who just was inexperienced with drinking alcohol. So that argument can immediately be deemed as redundant. And then you talk about the fact that he is just in an environment that I would say allows him to carry out some of these actions, and he's able to go forth and do it without really thinking twice. And you look at the messages that he sent back and forth through the history. He has used the N-word on several occasions. He is not put forward as this good standing human being that his parents continuously put forward that that's the reason why he needs to be spared. And then his mother comes out and says that he's going to be ruined in jail. What else? What is it? What kind of argument is that to put forward? Look at the individual whose life is already ruined. Look at the individual whose life he ruined. And you're trying to put that forward as a case to free up his already minimal jail term? The fact that he could get out after 3 months on good behavior?
Yeah, it's incredible. And also, I mean, you see with the character testimony that his friends and family submitted to the judge before he got sentenced, that he lives in that privileged bubble where his behavior is enabled. But there are more and more people coming forward talking about their personal experiences with him, and it shows that he's not some, upstanding citizen who has never caused any harm or injury to anyone else. A search of his phone showed he often used the N-words in text to a high school friend. In an interview, a high school acquaintance, AJ Burt, stated that he was really not delightful to be around. Burt, who is gay, said Turner repeatedly called him a faggot. So this guy is deplorable in more ways than one. And you don't just become a deplorable person. It's the environment that you're around and the people who enable you. And unfortunately, his family enabled him to be a piece of shit. And it's very likely that he not only raped someone who was unconscious behind a dumpster, it's likely that he took a photo of her body and sent it to a group of people.
Yeah, and speaking about enabling him, his friends or whoever deleted this GroupMe should be ashamed of themselves. If it likely wasn't him, it seems like he was in custody at the time, but whoever did delete that destroyed evidence, if that is truly what happened. And that is just another example of him living in this bubble that is becoming very clear, now that we've learned a little bit more about Brock Turner and his family, that his friends were no different, that they wanted to excuse his behavior, they wanted to cover up for him, and that sucks. And you are terrible for whoever deleted that GroupMe. Just to have that evidence, to destroy that evidence, is terrible. And it's just
they should be. I don't know whether or not GroupMe can retrieve deleted messages, but there should be a further investigation because. I mean, if he's sending naked photos of the victim.
Well, that shows that he doesn't feel any remorse. And then there's the difference between right and wrong. Yeah. It doesn't exist for him anymore. Like he just doesn't see that. And he should be punished, and whoever, and his friends should be punished because everyone that's come out that's been close to Brock Turner, they all kind of come out and you're like, oh, it's just another piece of shit. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing. And
one of his female friends said, just because he raped doesn't mean he's a rapist.
What?
I mean, what the?
Yeah, so.
A rapist rapes people. That's what Brock Turner did. He is a convicted rapist. Yeah. Again, the enabling just adds insult to injury, and it's sick.
And you all look stupid when you. I mean, you just look so stupid.
But he's been in an environment that people have went out to protect him. He's been in an environment, as you mentioned, a bubble that has allowed him to act basically just on instinct, no matter what. And he's obviously at a very prestigious college, and he's on the swim team. He's been bigged up to be this big man on campus and do what he wants. And he literally acted upon that instinct, and as a result, you have people defending him on his good behavior, on his good standing student, using the fact that he got into this college as one of your arguments. The fact is that he's a Stanford student, so that means, you know what? He's upright, he's a good student, because you don't do that if you go to Stanford. No, the fact is that when you raise people within this bubble and you raise them with values that don't, I would say in a way, don't condone people for bad behavior, literally just let them go about their business and do whatever they want, then there's going to be repercussions of it. And to say as an excuse that he won't survive in prison and that this verdict has destroyed their family, your family was destroyed long ago before that. And now you've destroyed another person's family due to the poor parenting before that.